What's good, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back to another F1 video for today, man. We're back. We're actually going some prehistorical. So everybody get your thinking caps on. We have the most successful teams in F1 history who are, now listen, some of y'all may think it's the Ferraris. Maybe a Mercedes. Maybe a Red Bull. You guys probably think it's Sauber, Jordan, Lotus, Force India, Williams, or more importantly, Ox. But you guys let me know in the comments down below. Who do you guys think is the most successful F1 team? Personally, I have to say Ferrari. I think like historical wise, but if we're gonna count like championship stuff like that, I'd probably say Mercedes just because of what Lewis Hamilton had done for that team. Red Bulls always have some good guys, but I think Ferrari for me is probably the most successful team in history. But you guys let me know in the comments down below. As always, shout out to Goodwood Road and Racing. That's the intro. Let's start, man. Don't forget to like the video and sub as well.
Over 100 teams have built cars to race in the Formula One World Championship since its inception in 1950. And don't worry if you can't remember all of them.
I can't.
In those intervening 70 years,
what is that?
15 have won the Formula One Constructors.
What is that?
Which, in true terms, is a
freaking. Why does this look like a freaking like a goalpost or some shit? That's what I thought. Just dude, what is that? I ain't never seen that before. That's why I'm like, what is that? It's some new contraption.
Worse than 85% failure rate. Picking the most successful teams then needs some criteria. 6 teams have won a single championship each, so we're discounting them. Which leaves us with 9 teams boasting 56 titles between them.
Woo.
But who tops the pile? And if you do enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe if you'd like more from Goodwood Road and Racing.
16. Ferrari, Schumacher, Senna, Prost. My boy Nigel.
Perhaps it isn't surprising that Ferrari tops this list. It has started more Grand Prix than any other constructor, by more than 100. It also started racing in Formula One 8 years before any other team on this list, and 16 years before any other team still competing with them.
Ooh.
It has also won more races than any other, had more 1-2 finishes, more podiums, more pole positions, more fastest laps, and won more points than any other team in Formula One history.
That's why I was saying Ferrari in the intro, because I was looking at like a historical point of view. Like they've been in the game, cooking for a long time, for like majority of like the other teams. That's why I was like, it's probably gonna be Ferrari. You guys get me? You feel me? You locked in?
Amazingly, though, it took Ferrari 4 seasons to win its first constructors' title after the crown was invented in 1958. That first title was secured in 1961 by the American-German duo of Phil Hill and Wolfgang von Trips.
And
with it came a driver's crown for Hill, without racing at the final race in the US after von Trips tragically lost his life in the penultimate round in Italy.
Oh, yeah.
Since then, Ferrari's championship victories have come in sprees. It clinched crowns through the 1970s with the likes of Niki Lauda, Jody Scheckter and Gilles Villeneuve. And then a couple more in the early 80s with Villeneuve again.
Yeah.
But it would then be nearly 2 decades before Ferrari held aloft the trophy again. It took the force of nature that was the Ross Brawn, Jean Todt, Michael Schumacher trio to restore Ferrari to glory. At which point, they went ahead and won almost everything in sight.
Wait,
Since
hold
then,
on. I think when I was complimenting Ferrari, I think I mentioned, well, Senna and Prost were still one of like, the greatest guys of all time to race for Ferrari. So I wasn't counting regarding like championships. I was just naming off, top drivers to drive for Ferrari. That was it. Just wanted to just make that clear
for the prancing horse.
Clear.
The new forces of Mercedes and Red Bull coming to control the 2010s.
Williams, 9 titles. 9.
It is Williams' entry to this list that might be the most amazing streak.
And it's probably going to be
of all.
9 for a
The team
long,
from
long
Grove
minute.
in Oxfordshire only entered its first race as a constructor in 1977, but had won its first title by 1980 and won 8 more over the next 17 years.
That's good.
The period of dominance also saw titles for legends including Alan Jones, Nelson Piquet, Keke Rosberg, Nigel Mansell, Alain Prost, Damon Hill and Jacques Villeneuve.
Look at that.
Behind the
Look at that
scenes,
lineup.
Williams has also been filled with
Alan
famous
Jones,
names. The
Villeneuve,
pen of Patrick Head helped to
Mansell.
spawn most of the early winners, and he was followed by Adrian
Prost.
Newey, a man whose name has become synonymous with building incredibly
Oh,
rapid
yeah.
racing.
Shout out Adrian Newey,
But
for real.
after Newey left and Villeneuve helped win the 97 crown,
Everything went
Williams
left.
checked out.
Yeah.
It is still racing today, but aside from a period of competitiveness with BMW in the early 2000s, Williams has never been a true contender since. But Frank Williams' incredibly British team continues to be a fan favourite no matter what. It is perhaps because Williams' dominance coincided with the rise of really televised Formula One around the globe, or just because of the fiercely independent nature of the team that Williams continues to grab the attention, despite being stuck right
They
at
just
the
aren't that
very
good.
back of the field.
I mean, they're mid now. Real mid. McLaren. Duh. Lewis Hamilton. Fernando.
Here you will find perhaps the biggest disparity between winning constructors' titles and winning
Lando.
drivers' titles. McLaren actually sits second on the all-time list of drivers' titles with 12, only 3 shy of Ferrari's total of 15. But the ethos of McLaren appears to have always been geared toward that top-line individual championship glory. While it has won the drivers' title while missing out on constructors' glory 4 times, McLaren has never won the constructors' title without the help of a drivers' champion, unlike Ferrari, for whom that became a regular feature in the 1970s and 1980s. McLaren's dominance really came through the late 1980s and early 1990s.
Look
In
at
that
that car.
period,
Oh
with
my
Gordon
God.
Murray involved and Alain Prost and
Look
Ayrton
at that
Senna leading the
team,
charge.
man. Look at that team. That's all, man. That I think that's all time. That's what that McLaren car is freaking crazy. Yeah, probably the greatest duo ever. Senna and Prost leading this pack. Oh my God! It's just I might just tear up, man, just thinking about it.
Charge, McLaren won
Just
6
greatness.
titles in 8 years,
Greatness.
including 4 on the trot. It resumed its place at the front of the field
My boy
in
Mika Häkkinen
1998,
came in.
clinching the title as well as the driver's crown for Mika Häkkinen. But since then, McLaren hasn't won a constructor's crown, and has in fact won only 1 since 1991. In that time, McLaren has won the 2008 driver's title with Lewis Hamilton and a second title for Mika Häkkinen in 1999.
That's
But
nice.
for both of these, it was beaten to team's glory by Ferrari. Fallow years have followed recently, but with a
Rick.
promising pairing of Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris, perhaps things are looking up again.
And my boy Oscar. Can't forgive him, my boy. Lotus 7 titles.
For a team so important to the history of F1 in engineering,
That's what I'm saying.
7 titles sounds like a pretty paltry return for Lotus. But, like Williams and McLaren, Lotus
7
won all its
titles.
constructors' crowns in a quick blitz. But unlike the other British teams, it then faded and burned out. The genius of Colin Chapman helped
Why is that
Lotus become
happening, though?
the
Why is,
team to
like, the
beat
British
in the
teams, like,
1960s and early
going out
1970s,
bad?
much to the chagrin of Enzo Ferrari.
Ain't that
Powered
Graham
by
Hill, right?
Ford and Cosworth's mighty
Hill.
DFE, the lightweight Lotus brand would become masters of the aerodynamic arts with the incredible Lotus 72, before transforming Formula One by harnessing ground effect. From then, Lotus continued to innovate and introduce some incredible names to Formula One, but it never managed to climb back to the top of the tree. Its last title for both drivers and constructors came in 1978 with Mario Andretti. And then, other than some wins,
That's a
that was
minute.
pretty much it for
That's a minute.
Sure, it would launch names like Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna onto the F1 map, but there would be no more titles. Lotus folded in the early 1990s, still trying to innovate, but struggling for cash. 2 more teams have taken the Lotus name since, with one even receiving some backing from the car firm, which still remains a going concern. But neither was really worthy of the name.
Dang. Mercedes. 7 titles. Lewis,
There is a
Nico.
legitimate argument to be made that both Braun
That
and
day.
Tyrrell's single constructor crowns could be included into this legacy. But officially, the Mercedes team has just the 6 F1 titles to its name. There are 2 reasons for this. Firstly, Merck's first dominant period in F1 came before the invention of the World Constructors title. In the 1950s, the great Juan Manuel Fangio won 2 titles driving Mercedes, but there was no Constructors' crown to win then. Secondly, after the 1955 Le Mans disaster, Mercedes decided to quit motorsport, and the name wouldn't return to F1 as a constructor until 2010.
That's a long time.
When they did come back, though, having purchased the
That is
Braun
a
team
long
that used to
time.
be Honda, that used to be BAR, that
Braun
used to be Tyrrell,
GP.
they did it hard. A few fallow years at the start were merely marking time while the rule sets changed and hybridization arrived, lulling the opposition into a bit of a false sense of security. When the rules changed, there was no stopping them. Since the debut of the V6 hybrid engines in 2014, it has clinched the Constructors' title every season.
Yeah.
And Lewis Hamilton has won 6
Well, not
of the
recently.
available drivers' crowns.
Not
And the
recently.
other one going to teammate Nico Rosberg.
Red Bull. So Red Bull has 4. Well, when this video was made, so they should have. This video was made 2 years ago, so they have 6, and then likely getting a 7th this year. So after this year, they are going to be tied with Lotus and Mercedes. Yeah. Wow. Hey, the way things are looking, man, they may pass them in
Hardly
2-3
seems to have
years.
been in Formula One for more than 5 minutes. But it's a measure of the intent shown by the drinks manufacturer to take things seriously that it sits 6th on the all-time F1 list already.
That's good.
Red Bull is another team that can trace its ancestry back through a few other teams, but in this case not quite to the level that Merck can, with Tyrrell having history way back to the early days of F1. Red Bull arrived in Formula One in 2005, buying the Jaguar team from a desperate-to-sell Ford.
Jaguar
When
team.
Red Bull arrived, it meant business, and
Yeah.
hired the aforementioned Newey immediately. He produced a series of striking but ultimately uninspiring cars until, as with so many changes in teams' fortunes, came a major rules reset. In 2009, the absolute glut of aerodynamic tech that had begun to festoon the cars was largely dismissed, leaving little wiggle room for the designers. The conditions were perfect for a team with a genius like
Look
Newey
at
at the
us.
helm,
Look at Christian.
a man who could find
He
the
looks
sort
so
of
young.
marginal gains that the newly restrictive rules meant you had to look for.
Shout out
Teamed
AJ
up
Newey
with a
again.
young and fired-up Sebastian Vettel, it won 4 titles on the bounce, setting the kinds of records we thought we'd never see again until Mercedes arrived. Indeed, in 2011, the 2 Red Bull cars started on pole in 18 of the 19 races.
Jeez.
They would win only 12.
Cooper. Yeah, I can't tell you too much about Cooper though.
Many
man.
of these teams have won a series of titles by taking a change to Formula One's rulebook and finding the sweet spot. Cooper, on the other hand, just built something no one had seen before. In 1959, no world champion drivers were on the grid, following the death
What?
of Mike Hawthorne and the retirement of Juan Manuel Fangio.
Oh.
Van Wall, which had won the first F1 Constructors title in 1958, also withdrew, leaving Ferrari as the only remaining race-winning team on the grid. But they were all beaten by a small team from Surbiton, which brought along a complete revolution in the way Formula One cars were built.
They drive through
Cooper
grassland on them.
effectively reversed the F1 car, sticking the engine behind the driver rather than the other way round.
Oh,
With its
hey,
revolutionary
finessing
new
the
cars,
game.
Cooper won 5 races, driven by Jack Brabham, Sterling Moss, and Bruce McLaren. And Brabham
Look at
would
those
also win
names.
the driver's crown. The following year, both Brabham and Cooper would do it again. Cooper won 7 of the 10 F1 races that season. At the Indy 500, Cooper turned up with a car that was widely mocked on arrival, but started exactly the same rear-engine revolution as it had done in F1. Founder Charles Cooper died in 1964, and son John Cooper sold the company in 1965. It would win one race in 1966 with John Surtees and another in 1967 with Pedro Rodriguez before bowing out after a single race in 1969.
Golly, well, their prime wasn't too long. But listen, the Loki did change the game for a minute, though. Shout out Cooper for changing the game.
We've met Black Jack Brabham with Cooper, winning 2 titles in those magic
Then he started his own team.
machines. Well, when he was done with that, he went off and founded his own team. And with that team, he went on to win another driver's title, his third,
just
in
going crazy.
1966, and the Constructors' Crown. The following season, he was joined by Denny Hulme at the wheel of the Repco-engined Brabham. Hulme promptly won his first and only F1 title, and Brabham won its second Constructors' Crown. It would not win another. Following a few years in the wilderness, Brabham would go on to win 2 more drivers' titles in the 1980s. After future F1 Supremo Bernie Ecclestone had bought the team and brought in design guru Gordon,
I thought that was one of the Beatles.
Nelson Piquet.
I thought that was one of the Beatles.
Had the constructors' title both times. Ecclestone eventually lost interest in the team and sold it on, after which Brabham dropped sharply to the back of the grid. Its only real notable achievement after 1985 being launching the F1 career of Damon Hill.
Hey. Oh, Renault, my bad. We're not done yet. Renault. Shout out Renault.
Another team for which you could potentially claim more titles. The current Renault team is the former Lotus, which is the former Renault, Benetton and Toleman teams. Renault has had several cracks at F1. First, back in the 1970s and 80s, then again in this title-winning period in the 2000s, before returning, buying back the same team for its current foray in Formula One. So far, only one of those attempts has borne championship fruit. With the mix of Fernando Alonso's driving skill, Pat Simmons' design talent and the sheer force of nature that is Flavio Briatore at the helm, the 2005 and 2006 titles were clinched, breaking the Ferrari hold on Formula One, and becoming the first team to win the title with a car not designed by Adrian Newey or Rory Byrne since 1991. Since then, things haven't been quite so kind to the part government-owned Renault brand in F1. It supplied engines to Red Bull for its run of 4 titles in the early 2010s, but has never managed to find the same success again with its own built cars.
It'd be like that, though.
These, then, are the most statistically successful teams.
It'd be like that, though. But again, shout out to Goodwood. Great video. 16. Ferrari was 16. Like I said, man, Red Bull gonna be passing Lotus and Red Bull. I mean, in the Mercedes, so that's probably gonna happen. So, the McLaren, watch out, because Red Bull are the talk of the town, and they are here to stay. But as always, hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. Don't forget to like and sub as well. Take care, stay amazing as always. Peace.